Warning, this entire video is going to be talking about spoilers from The Mandalorian Season 1 as well as Season 2. If you already watched it or don't really care about being spoiled, please proceed. If you don't want to be spoiled, watch something else, watch the show before you watch this video. Thank you very much. The Mandalorian's finale has dropped about a week or two ago, and for a while, all fans of the show talked about is the appearance of one Luke Skywalker.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Many people also put their reactions to the matter online. The reveal of the Jedi is filled with excitement and marinated by hype generated through many prediction videos that came out more regularly than the weekly episodes. That being said, the moment felt a little hollow with me personally. I really wouldn't call it a problem, and hence why I chose the word dilemma in my title for this video. Just for the record, I don't think it's bad, nor did I necessarily dislike it, so please put your torches and lightsaber pitchforks away. Number 1, the dilemma. At its core, The Mandalorian is about the story of a father and son duo, while not biological. The show has shown that the adopted father of Grogu go to great length to protect and help his son. He will even go against his creed. The Mandalorian is himself, the character, is facing a dilemma in these last few episodes, having to choose between his son and his integrity, how strictly he follows his religion, and working with several people that he probably doesn't want to work with. Season 2 has established that the objective of the story is to return Grogu to the Jedi, because Grogu is unfit to be trained in a Mandalorian way, and it is better for the child to be trained in the Jedi way. I mean, it makes sense because you can't really fit his ears into a helmet. The early episodes also established that Mando is running a one-person operation most of the times and does not necessarily have the ability to take care of Grogu while taking jobs as a bounty hunter and being pursued by Moff Gideon. In this way, the payoff of the story arc would inevitably end in one of two ways, either separation or stagnation. Separation meaning that Grogu will no longer be with Mando, and stagnation would mean that they keep being a family because they can't find a Jedi, right? Stagnation would be somewhat unsatisfying for the audience, but it would also mean that the father and son won't have to be separated. Separation would make more sense for the story because of how much it is building towards finding a Jedi, but how would you go about taking away a child from his father's arms without making the audience reject this separation? Well, the writers thought that the trick is you bring a character that the audience already loves and trusts. This is where Luke Skywalker comes in. The audience loves and trusts Luke Skywalker, so they won't immediately realize what this scene really means. One, it means that a stranger who Mando doesn't know anything about just came in and took his son away from him, and Mando just let it happen. Two, it means that when Kylo inevitably turns evil and Grogu will be like a youngling or preteen by then, because how slowly his species grows, he's going to get murdered by Kylo. Well, I'm sure that one of the 50,000 future Star Wars projects is going to cover what happened to Grogu and whether or not Kylo got him before The Force Awakens. Right now, all I care about is whether or not this decision to have Luke take away the child makes sense within the context of the story. Mando comes across a guy with trust issues. In Season 1, he doesn't trust the droids. He is cautious of the young bounty hunter who asks him for help. He doesn't trust the clearly untrustworthy crewmates that he is to bail somebody out of jail with. He doesn't trust the Empire with the child. He doesn't trust the bounty hunter guild guys because they're all in his business. They're his rivals and try to betray him. I wouldn't blame the guy for not being able to trust anyone. It's difficult making a living trying to survive in that galaxy far away. And that's why you gotta shoot first. Anyway, back to my point. In season 1, we see Mando warm up to the child and overcome his prejudice towards droids because IG-11 saved his ass. In season 2, further distrust emerges when Mando sees that Bo-Katan's crew does not abide by the same creed that he does due to coming from a different clan. Ahsoka shows up, who looks like a Jedi and can use Jedi powers, yet she refuses to train Grogu, quoting some stuff about even the best Jedi can be corrupted by having attachments to their family. Wow, what a great organization you guys are running there. One of the biggest criteria is you have to be cut off from your loved ones and your family. Almost cult-like. I mean, she didn't even give Mando a good reason either. I can think of a few legitimate reasons in story why Ahsoka would reject Mando's plea to train Grogu. Number 1, she's not really a Jedi. It was established in the finale of the Clone Wars series. Number 2, she's running a one-person operation to find Thrawn and would equally be unequipped to protect, care for, and train a child as the Mandalorian himself. Number 3, she's on her own and she doesn't have a community. So when the armorer said that the child must be returned to his kind, it probably means that the child should be returned to a community of Jedi and rather not a singular Jedi on a potentially dangerous mission. Now, all of these are good points as to why Ahsoka can't train Grogu, points that the show didn't make. Instead, we have to tell you this story that we all know, referencing Anakin. Hey, you know Anakin?
I understood that reference.
I always thought that the reason why Anakin is bad is not because he wants to save his wife and children, but because the Jedi predicted that he's going to be a bad guy and continuously treated him unfairly. Ever heard a term called secondary deviance, where people assume you're one type of person and treat you as such, and as time goes on, you yourself will behave as if you're indeed this type of person? Well, anyway, back to my original point. Mando finds Ahsoka after taking several detours and facing down danger many more times, and Ahsoka says she just can't do it without providing a proper reason. So, knowing Mando, who ran into all these people that he cannot trust, I assume he's not going to trust the Jedi from now on. Yet instead, in the end, when Luke shows up, Mando just willingly give up the child. Should Mando trust Luke immediately? Probably not, as it is not consistent with his character. Now you might say, well, Luke did save his ass at the end of the episode, and Mando trusts IG-11 because IG-11 saved his ass. However, Luke is not a character that Mando had previous connections with, unlike IG-11. For all we know, Luke might just be an enemy of Moff Gideon and not an ally of Mando's. You know why Mando trusted the droid at the end of season 1? Because he sees the droid taking care of the child. He fought with the droid and against the droid before. Then the droid saves his life and sacrifices itself for him. Mando has a history with the droid. In this instance, Mando is meeting a total stranger for the first time with Luke. A total stranger who made his entrance with a show of violence and force, no pun intended, and none of his compassion and ingenuity. The only way to fix this issue is if Luke shows up a few episodes early and travel with Mando a little bit, and they got to know each other better. If I am Mando, I would also like to visit the Jedi school that Luke has, to see if the dorms are clean and the food is nice, and the other kids won't bully Grogu, like how a father would sending a child to boarding school. Also, Ahsoka said that the whole speech about even the best of us can be corrupted and fall because of their attachment to their family. So why didn't Mando ask whether or not Luke has that problem as well? No, they just didn't mention it. Instead, he just gives him away to a stranger. See, the dilemma that the writing team face here is that they need to make this decision make sense. So they said that, well, the audience is going to be amazed, be wowed by Luke's appearance, and because the audience has prior relation with Luke, it's all going to work out. But they didn't take into consideration the characters in the show and how they would take to the situation. Well, that's not to say that the story is not good, but just in this one moment, fan service seems to be given priority over character consistency. Number 2, the face of Luke Skywalker. Now, I'm not talking about the quality of the CG face of Luke Skywalker or the fact that by using deep fake, people can make the face look more natural, or they probably just should have used a lookalike actor to be in the role. I am talking about people's reaction to his appearance. Many people cried, tears of joy and tears of emotion, seeing the Luke that they remembered from the original trilogy, namely Return of the Jedi version, showing up on screen again. Now, you might think I'm going to make fun of people for crying about a poorly CG'd Luke, but that's not what I'm going to do. I understand why people cry. Star Wars, in this instance, the original trilogy, is still of great cultural significance to sci-fi, fantasy, and popular literature in general. Those films also hold emotional significance to old and new viewers alike. I get teary-eyed a little bit whenever Luke says, "I'm a Jedi like my father before me," because this line carried great significance to the story. It was the culmination of all of Luke Skywalker's struggles and resolve. When people watch these new scenes with old characters or familiar designs, they're reminded of the significance the characters had in the story and even the significance the character holds for them personally. Maybe they grew up with the character and they feel emotional about it. So I'm not going to make fun of people who cried when Luke Skywalker shows up. Of course, there's the other way of looking at the matter in a more critical sense. One might say that the series is creatively bankrupt, or like I previously mentioned, putting fan service in front of grounded storytelling. Now, if you're watching the video and thinking to yourself that one of those ways of looking at Star Wars is wrong, I'm sorry to tell you that
only a Sith deals in absolutes.
none of the way of looking at the matter is wrong. People are entitled to their own opinions, especially to a piece of entertainment. But being both a fan and a critic in this situation, I hope I can bridge the gap a little bit. The Mandalorian, as much as I've liked it and thought that it was sound, is ultimately a product made by Disney. It is selling a commodified version of Star Wars, more specifically of the original trilogy. Now, this is not a knock to the integrity of the show or its story. I'm simply stating the intent for creating the show. It was not a passion project like when George Lucas first started, and how he tried very hard to pursue and nearly failed more times than he succeeded. It was not made with artistic intention as a priority. It is a commodity that was created because Disney Plus needs more content. So when these guys are doing this, what they're doing is that they're making fun of people for paying their hard-earned money to buy a replica lightsaber and crying tears of joy like they've just touched a real lightsaber. I'm taking a stand here to say that I'm not making fun of people who are willingly buying the replica lightsabers. I'm a collector myself of a great many things. And I buy toys and models that are expensive but really of mostly no value to anyone but myself. So I'm in no place to judge. But in this analogy, the Mandalorian is the high quality $100 and above replica lightsabers you can probably buy from something like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Well, the sequel trilogy and the more schlocky later ones is more like the cheap ones you can buy for 8-year-olds as part of their Halloween costume. They are products meant to be sold and lack originality and ingenuity. Now, I'll gladly watch The Mandalorian and collect the intricately detailed looking $100 lightsabers if I ever go to Disneyland, but buyers beware, don't always trust them with your money or get emotionally manipulated. The big D might suck you dry. Number 3, this is not a knock on the story, the acting, and the quality of the Mandalorian show, but more like a public announcement for customer advocacy. Beware before you buy into the great product of Disney Star Wars. And oh my, It's really hard not to call it a product after this display of sheer quantity. Now, while having so much new Star Wars content doesn't mean it's going to be bad. In fact, I can already probably tell that I might enjoy some of these better than the others. It means that the storytelling format of Star Wars are going to be less like the original trilogy, that being with a thought-out complete story arc and resting period between releases to make sure everything is sound, but more like something else Disney owns. Now, I used to be a fan of comic books too until I stopped caring, and I've heard that this probably might happen to me with Star Wars as well. Like I said previously, well, new content doesn't mean it's bad content. Sometimes it does trivialize the original, intricately crafted narrative. Hey, remember how Vader sacrificed himself to destroy the Sith? Oh, wait, that means nothing now. Never mind. And don't mention how the prequels completely killed the mystique and missed the point of the Jedi Knights being peacekeepers. You see, the bigger the narrative is stretched, the more tension there appears on the surface and more holes appear. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to bring up two very tragic characters that show up in The Mandalorian as examples. Ahsoka Tano and Boba Fett. Why are they tragic, you might ask? Not for any story reason, but the fact that these two characters are stranded in their character arcs and might never be completed. Ahsoka's greatest foil in the story, her mentor, one of the most important person to her in her life, Anakin Skywalker, is gone at this point. If you ask me, Ahsoka should have died in the temple scene with Vader in Rebels. Ahsoka returns to redeem the person that she wasn't there for when he needed her the most and declares that I won't leave you this time. And she sacrifices herself in an attempt to redeem Anakin. Pretty good conclusion to a story, don't you think? No, instead now she's going after Thrawn, a character whose great history was trivialized and casted away and deemed meaningless by a company trying to sell new products. She's going to be running around the galaxy for the next 20 to 30 years in TV shows and comic books, pursuing new goals and fighting new foes. However, her character has finished her growth in the Clone Wars. So, really, there is nowhere thematically or narratively reasonable for her to go. Now that Anakin's dead, the one chance to give the character a satisfying conclusion is over. So is Boba. They retroactively went back to give Boba a justified revenge plot against Mace Windu that ultimately served no purpose. Boba didn't get his revenge on Windu, had one failed assassination attempt in Clone Wars, and played a limited role in the series overall. He had no character arc in the original trilogy, and he was retroactively given one, only to have it unrealized. Now he's back from the dead like a zombie, and I do mean it because he is a character that is basically revived by pure fan support. So I think he's probably going to be alive for the next 20 to 30 years, wandering around in the galaxy just like Ahsoka is. And he can't even die. Imagine the disappointment the fans would feel if he came back only to die later on. He literally came back for the fans, so he's not going to die ever again. But maybe there's still hope for Boba. You guys know why people like the Maul in Clone Wars? Because he came back, had a character, was menacing and a legitimate threat, had a tragic backstory, had enough motivation as to why he's mad at everybody, and ultimately died at the hands of his greatest rival, his foil. Well, it was sad. It was satisfying. Well, guess Disney will just use the good old Marvel Comics trick. Whenever a character gets old or stale or is just not selling well, they stop production on the comic for a few months and announce that the character will be back with a new series, with a new creative team that will take the character to a direction that they've never been before. Well, I have great distaste for this sort of writing. Remember X-Men? They have swords now. Remember the Dark Phoenix? She's back for like the 50th time. Characters are never meant to be action figures that you can take on and off the shelf. They have a life of their own, and the creators must respect that. Characters should not be taken to new and strange directions, because when a character is created, they have their place in the story and they have their trajectory and directions that they're meant to be taking. I cannot get invested in a long-running, never-ending comic book because creators frequently disrespect the places that the characters go through resetting and rebooting the characters back to a status quo. Remember when Deadpool found out that he had a daughter and he was married, had a family, and learned to be a responsible father and a family man? Then suddenly the Earth was destroyed and Doctor Doom created Battle World? It's this nonsensical playing with action figures attitude that the comic industry frequently exhibit that make me uninvested in these monthly issues. It's difficult to care about a narrative that the company behind it can just deem to be non-canon and have it reset. Yes, I am talking about Marvel Comics as well as all the Star Wars content published by Dark Horse that is now just thrown into the trash can. And that's exactly what I don't want Star Wars to become. But alas, it's certainly not up to me, and by the looks of it, is already a little too late. Is there still hope for Star Wars? I don't know. And I prefer not to think about it. Guess I'll just sedate myself by playing with my Galaxy's Edge laser swords while watching Andor, the most memorable character from Rogue One. See you guys around. Have a good one.